Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate it. It warms my heart. Ash and I were talking just yesterday how much we just love this community, love you folks, love being here. Makes us giddy to have found each other. Today, I'm talking on whose life is better. And I'm going to start with a parable I wrote. Yes, Jesus isn't the only one who gets to write parables. And so there's this group of folks, and they decide that they're going to journey to the land of enlightenment. So they pack up their bags, and they hit the road, and they're not out there very long before a car swerves and crashes into a tree. And so they go running over and they help the person out, and they call 911 and they get the person comfortable. And once they think that everything is set up, they go, okay, it's time for us to continue. We just got started on our journey and we got a long way to go. And we know, because we're headed to the land of enlightenment, that everything works out okay. And one guy goes, no, I really need to stay with him. I feel like it's mine to do. And they're like, really? We just got started. You said you were going to come with us to the land of enlightenment. He's like, no, this is mine to do. So he stays. The rest of them move on. The ambulance arrives, and he gets in the ambulance with them. And the EMTs notice that this guy is really calm and focused and would make an incredible EMT. And so by the time they get to the hospital, they actually convince him to go to school to become an EMT. And he does that. And it turns out that he's really good at it. And he wins some awards along the way and throughout his life. And he gets promoted, and he actually becomes a teacher of other EMTs. At some point, he gets cancer, has a couple of years of struggle, and then he dies. The group, they've been walking down the road, they get to an inn, and there's this band playing, and it's this great band. And there's this woman in the group who is also an incredible musician, so they talk the band into letting her go up there and play a couple of tunes with them. So she gets up there, she plays a couple of tunes with this band, and the band is blown away. They're going, you got to join us. You got to be here with us. We could go far with your kind of talent along with ours in terms of, playing music. And she feels it. She feels like, wow, this is really my place. This is where I'm supposed to be in the world. So the group is like, I can't believe this. We're losing another one. And she winds up staying with them. And she goes for years playing with this band, and they get a little bit of success. They never really succeed, huge, become famous or anything. She marries, has a couple of kids, and winds up teaching those kids music. In fact, becomes a music teacher later in life and keeps herself surrounded by music her whole life. And feels pretty good about that. Feels good about that. Meantime, the group's going on, and they reach a campfire, and they're camping out for the night, and there's this other campfire near, and one of the guys sitting at the group's campfire looks over and sees this woman sitting in the other campfire. The two of them lock eyes, and it's like lightning bolts happen. And he's like, I'm sorry, guys. I got to go check out this lady here. And so he gets up, he goes over there, and they fall in love. They have this deep, incredible love. They have a couple of kids. He gets a couple of jobs, and it never, advances much, but he doesn't care about that. All he wants to do is get home and be with his wife and kids, who grow up, and then they have kids, and all of a sudden he's a grandpa, and somewhere in the midst of being a grandpa, his wife dies. The love of his life dies. But he's surrounded by his kids, his grandkids, and soon his great-grandkids. has this incredibly loving life and, finally transitions himself. Meantime, groups going on to the land of enlightenment, and they enter a town where they find out from the innkeeper that at the other end of the town, they're at war with a neighboring town. That they were peaceful people, but they're being attacked and they're trying to defend their town from being taken over by the other town, but they don't have a lot of military experience and they feel like they're in trouble. And one person in the group, a woman in the group, stands up and goes, I've got military training. I can help you. And they're like, the rest of the Enlightenment group is like, what are you talking about? Enlightenment is about peace. It's about love. It's not about war. What are you doing? And she's like, I'm sorry. This is my calling. This is mine to do. And so she leaves the group and she goes, and it turns out she actually can help the group militarily, and they turn the tide and they actually beat the other town off. And she is such a big part of that they actually build a statue of her in the center of the town. The group's continuing on, and one by one, they fall off at different places when somebody in that group gets a calling to, by the time the group actually reaches the land of enlightenment, there's only one left. A woman. She's left. And she reaches the land of enlightenment, where she opens to the all. She is given this incredible wisdom. She becomes the light of the world. Millions of people wind up following her. She starts this whole new religion of peace and love and beauty from her place of enlightenment. So my question for you is, who led the better life? And the answer is nobody. When we follow what is authentic for us, whatever it is, that's the better life. But we can get lost really easily in thinking that somebody else's life, like for instance, becoming enlightened, right? I know for myself that getting into this teaching, getting into this movement, that the thing for me was making it a way of life, was turning it into a place where I could actually reach the land of enlightenment, whatever the heck that is. But for others, this is just a tool. This is a tool to use in the life that matters to them. Who's right? Who's wrong? Nobody. But we can become judgment about that in our heads, right? We can start feeling like, wow, they're doing it wrong. Or worse, wow, I'm doing it wrong. And beat ourselves up for that. Envy is a killer of self-esteem. I grew up in a family. I'm the oldest of 6 siblings. Very accomplished siblings. 2 of them are millionaires. One of them is the highest ranking civilian in the Navy in the United States. She's a scientist with 500 employees underneath her. Another one of my siblings teaches the largest corporations in the world how to do teams. And my last sibling is on 32 patents. And I don't know if you know anything about patents, but coming up with an idea that's original enough to get a patent is no easy steak. He was one of the first people involved in making wafers that made processors for computers. He was right there at the beginning of that. These are very accomplished people, and there are times in my life that I have compared myself to them and felt lacking. That wouldn't be hard to do. And I'm watching you all out there nod as I'm saying how successful my relatives are. And I'm like, yeah, wow, yeah. Well, I feel that too. I look at we get together at a family reunion and they talk about the big stuff they're doing. And sometimes in the past, it has really gotten to me to where I have felt diminished by it. It took me a long time to appreciate the life that I have journeyed. That actually my life's been pretty extraordinary, even though I don't have all those letters after my name or accomplishments like that. I have been walking my journey. And to appreciate that has taken me work. And maybe some of you have some folks around you who you would consider more successful. Maybe you have folks around you who are in a place in their lives where you feel like you wish you were. But in the end, it's ours to walk our path. And to not get caught up in the idea that somebody else's is better. It's easy to do, I mean, of course you know. Am I the only one? So of course you know. We can get caught up. Now, we're having this AGM here today, and we're going to be talking about who we are now, what we have been, and who we are in the future. But there's a few things I'd like you to know. As we call ourselves a Science of Mind Center, what that actually means is incredibly different. I have visited at least 75 different centers in our movement. And I want to tell you that every single one of them, defines what science of mind is, what we're now calling science of mind and heart. Did you know that Ernest Holmes originally called this science of mind and spirit? He didn't call it science of mind. He called it science of mind and spirit. And then somewhere along the way, they thought, let's get rid of the word spirit. What a crazy idea that is, given that's the heart of what it is we do. All right. So I go to all these centers. This is the true, I'm telling you. I have been to centers where they sing songs about Jesus Christ as their Savior in a science of mind and heart center. I have been to other centers on the other end of the spectrum where they're not allowed to speak the word God. They are so secular that this is a philosophy that they are not allowed to speak the word God. This is what's going on. So it isn't like when we say we're a Science of Mind Center, it's that simple. We get to define ourselves by who we decide we are. There's a huge gamut of what that can look like. The thing that I love about this place is the community, the love, the kindness that I feel from everybody here. Not just on Sundays, but I go out on these coffee dates with a whole bunch of you, and we're hoping to do it a lot more. And I learn about your lives, and you're incredibly impressive people. And I want you to know that if there's any time in which you don't feel impressive, call me. And I would be happy to remind you how impressive you are. Because we are all walking our own path here. And so one of the things that's really important to me as a community is that we don't try to get us all to be on the same page, as they say. There is a time in our history where being on the same page was important. Lockstep, walking together. I say we enter this new age, this new way of being, where what we open to is the acceptance of everybody's path, everybody's way of being in this. So that when somebody feels down, they know this is a place they can come to be loved. When somebody feels unimpressive with themselves, this is a place they can come to be reminded how impressive they are, to be reminded how impressive you are. Let's take spirituality to this whole other place. Let's take it to a place of acceptance. In a world that works for everyone, there's no such thing as lockstep. There's all about diversity, celebrating the differences that we have, celebrating the differences of how we think about science of mind and what I'm calling science of mind and heart. You get to call it what you want. This is just what I'm calling it. As we discover and delve deeper into our own personal souls, let's come together and be able to do that in a group and not be afraid that how we feel about that is somehow so different that it will be shamed or put down or looked at as wrong. Instead, let's create a space where however somebody's thinking about science of mind of heart, science of mind of spirit, however somebody's thinking about God, spirit, the one mind, as they call it in those secular places, however somebody's thinking about it is okay here, is supported here, is lifted here. If we can do that, we have raised our vibration for all of us. We have raised ourselves to how we go out and then interact in the world. Because in the long run, it's not just about doing that here. This is a place we can get rejuvenated, replenished. But then in the end, we're going out into the world to do our jobs, to do our passion, to do our love, to do our light. We take that out into the world. I've been thinking a lot about this lately, about the diverseness of it all, the uniqueness of each of us, and how it's time. It is absolutely time for us to celebrate that, the differences. Instead of looking for I know people who spend all their time looking at what's similar, what's the same about us. And I'm saying, let's shift that. That's the easy part. We're all human. We're all going to shed our skins. One thing that I have been doing for almost 40 years now, maybe 35, somewhere in there, was remember that I'm going to die. And that the only person who's going to care about how I spent my time is me on my deathbed. And so I actually do this thing where I imagine myself on my deathbed, look back on my life, and go, is that okay, how I spent my time? And there have been times in my life where the answer has been no, it's not. And at those moments, I've changed direction. Because that's the moment I want to be really clear and happy about. That's what I offer you. One of the things they asked me when I was applying to be the minister here was what mystical teachings I bring. This is a biggie for me. In the Native American customs, in the First Nation customs, they call it wearing death on your shoulder. I do that. It keeps me clear as day. I never forget that I have no clue when my last day is. Ash was asking me, so if you were going to only live another month or so, how would you want to spend it? And I said, exactly how I'm spending it. This is it. Can you say the same? If you can, excellent. If not, I highly recommend taking some action around that. Getting your life on target for how it's going to feel if this is it. Because I'm clear as day around that. So I want to support you in being clear as day around that. And having this be something that actually you can bring forth so that when that day comes for you, whether it's 50 years from now, 200 years from now, or tomorrow, you can go, yes. And there's no right answer to this. You know, I was at a center where they were saying that nobody on their deathbed talks about they wish they'd worked harder or did more. And it turns out that's not true. One of my favorite last lines of life is from Renoir. He was 97 years old, and his last thing he said is, "What a shame, just when I'm beginning to show promise." So there's no right answer. You get to make sure that what matters to you is what matters to you. No shoulds in there. This should matter. That should matter. Forget that. Don't should on yourself. Don't should on yourself. I highly recommend that. We have the ability here to work together, to be in this together, so that every single person who walks through that doors can know that we support what matters to them really. But if you really want to know what matters to you, imagine yourself on your deathbed. Did wonders for me. And so, would you guys like to try that? You guys up for that? All right. Let's end with a little meditation then. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes if it makes you comfortable, and relax. You're on a path. It is the perfect path. It is your path. How it feels beneath your feet, the air against your skin, it is perfect. This path leads you to an opening. It is the perfect opening. It is your sanctuary. How it feels, how it looks, the sounds. And in the center is a chair. It is the perfect chair. Go sit in this chair, and as you sit down, feel the of how perfectly it fits you. Now take another deep breath and relax even more. Now imagine yourself on your deathbed. This is the last moments of your life. This is it. You have spent your time the way you spend it, and here you are, ready to transition. Look back on how you have spent your life. Not to judge, but how does it feel to have lived that life? Is there anything you would do differently? Anything you would change? Take another deep breath and thank yourself for this viewpoint. And when you're ready, come back and open your eyes. You can do this anytime. I do it regularly. It keeps me on target. It makes sure I'm doing what is mine to do. There is something in life that is yours to do. Maybe you're doing it, maybe you're not. You know, the last thing I want to leave you with is about clothes. You know, this is our clothing as we walk around in this life. What we do is get to wear this until the day we put it down. We get to have the experiences we're having. But one of the things that I've noticed for myself is that sometimes I hold on to clothes or experiences longer than they actually work because they're so darn comfortable. Watch out for that. Keep it fresh. What is mine to do now? Something I ask myself almost every single day. What is mine to do now? It keeps my life very fresh. And that's what you want. Not because it was yours to do a year ago, 10 years ago. Keep it fresh. Because right here in the now is where we know that we are on target to feel great when it's our time to move on to the next. I love you and I want you to have the most amazing lives. And I want you to know how impressive you all are. Thank you. I love you.